So having a small, concise idea of a universe you want to create or a story that you want to tell, and then building your scenes with that in mind. So if you're adding an object, ask yourself, why should this object be in here?
Yeah.
Adding an object you shouldn't just add an object because it's pretty or because it's shiny or because, I think that looks good. I think you should add the object if it actually helps to convey a certain story.
Malthe at Motion Mixture, he's one of my good old friends. And when we were working together, it was always like I was the technical dude and he was the one who had all the creative ideas, all the crazy ideas. He has a really cool style and just a creative eye, which is very obvious when looking at some of the work that he has been doing. In this podcast, we will touch on his most recent short film, Odyssey, and get to know how he pulled that off, just working on it by himself. But before we get into the podcast, just a word from our sponsor. So RTMG, the real-time motion graphics course by Mitch Sinoviv. It's aimed at motion designers and visual artists who want to learn about new techniques to quickly generate ideas and produce great-looking renders at breakneck speed. So I went through this course myself, and I found so many small golden nuggets of tips and tricks in here. Even just the way that Mitch sets up Blender made me rethink my own workflow. So I would recommend this course to anybody who is interested in motion design or just want to be more creative in their workflows. Check the description for the link along with the coupon code. For the early birds, you will get 30% off until the 17th of June, but even after that you can still grab a 15% discount code when using the link. But hey, enough of me talking, let's get to the podcast. Cue the intro.
Yeah, you can make GIFs, you can make courses, tutorials, YouTube videos, podcasts. Yeah, there's so many different avenues in this field, which just makes it, so much more fun to be in.
Yeah.
Because if you get bored of just doing freelance or just working at a studio, you can try out other routes.
Exactly. And that's why I think you see a lot of people going from the studio and then being like, I want something new. And then they explore the freelance.
Exactly. Yeah, we know that.
But anyway, before getting too far into everything, I was thinking that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like where you have been working, where you first got to know 3D, and like what are the projects you like to work on?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, my name is Malthe, and I'm a motion designer. And I'm working in Aarhus, Denmark, at a studio called Cat Design Form, where me and Daniel met each other. Or, well, we actually met each other before that at a company called Illusion Media. Oh, sorry, I think someone was knocking. Maybe not, sorry. We met each other at a company called Illusion Media. And I think that must have been my second job in the industry. So before that, I had an internship, which is where I really got into the industry at a small company called Anton. And so I was studying at a school in a small city called Grenaa, called 3D College. And at 3D College, I was learning, a little bit more about the actual industry, but not really that much in motion design.
Yeah,
it was mostly Argwis and 3ds Max.
I think a lot of people in Denmark, like a lot of artists, be it motion design artists, 3D artists, architectural visualization people, they have some kind of story with 3D College.
Yeah, most people have. But they wasn't really teaching me any motion design. And I learned Cinema 4D before that. I think I started learning it when I was like 14 maybe, doing, the good old Minecraft animations.
Yeah.
I was watching Captain Sparkles and, loving his videos. And then he did some music videos with 3D animation. And I had to learn that. And I think Cinema 4D was just the software that came up when I started searching on it on YouTube or Google. And I slowly started to learn 3D with that, and then got into 3D college. And I just knew pretty quick that 3ds Max just wasn't the software for me, and Argvis just wasn't the thing for me either. So I just focused on After Effects and Cinema 4D.
Yeah.
Then after that, I got my internship. I think I was at the school for 8 months or something like that, and then got an internship at this small company. And then I really started to learn the more business side, or the actual client side, actually working with professionals.
So how long did you actually, when you were at the internship, did you spend all the time in the job, or were you also at the school?
Yeah, we would sort of, I think I had like 2 months maybe at the internship, and then I would have 5 weeks at the school. And we would do this 8 times. Well, the last 2 months was just the exam, I think.
Yeah, okay. And the school was, how long was the school from start to finish?
Education. It actually depends on how quick you get your internship.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Since I got it after 8 months, it was pretty quick. Because when you can actually go there for maybe 2.5 years, not get an internship, and then after 2.5 years, you get the internship. That could be a case. And a lot of people do that. But when you start your internship, you have 2.5 years after that. So for me, it was a little bit over 3 years in total.
So it is very focused on getting that internship, and then you can start really learning it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you won't really be in the industry otherwise, except if you can just find a job on your own. But most people don't.
And were you doing any work back then, like freelance as well, or were you only focusing on this on the school and the?
Yeah, I was only. I think I was so focused on actually my personal projects. So obviously I was focused on the internship and actually just learning things on the professional side. But every time I would get home from school or get home from work, I would just be creating my own short films or personal projects, and that was so much more fun for me. And which is also why I really loved the school side of things, because after you got the internship, you would get to the school for 5 weeks and you could do whatever you want to. So I would just have 5 weeks every day. You know, I could work for 16 hours if I wanted to, 18 hours if I wanted to, just on a personal project.
And that time you didn't have to go to the actual classes there?
No. After you get an internship, you just have these school periods, and there is a teacher, but you don't have to do anything specific.
Okay. And so it is like when you have that internship, you're just like going out there. You're just a star child.
Yeah, I think it's actually because they know that if you get that internship, you are sort of specializing. So they know that they can't have a teacher for every single student. So if we had 25 students that all have different internships, somebody is in gaming, somebody is in motion design, Argvis, and that one teacher can't really teach everyone. So they're just saying, okay, you teach yourself.
Yeah, so like you learn the basics in those months before, and when you get to the point you can get a job, then get out there and then specialize in that. So what was it that you specialized in? You mentioned After Effects and Cinema 4D.
Yeah, that was
both.
Yep. Okay. I use them for all my programs, all my projects, really. Yeah. I think in the beginning I was actually using After Effects a little bit more. Right when I got my internship, I was really focused on doing 2D animation.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun. I was starting to head that way, just doing more 2D animation. And then I fell back on and thought, 2D animation is not for me.
I'm happy you got back to the 3D side.
Yeah.
3 dimensions.
Yeah, so much more. Yeah, I think 2D animation can be a little bit limited.
Yeah.
At least workflow-wise.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I feel like the After Effects beautiful projects, they depend a lot on hacks and like, how do you fix this quickly? And it's like 3D feels more like free art. I feel more free somehow in 3D.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. And I also think that if you work just with 2D animation, you don't really just work with 2D animation. You're bringing so much 3D into it, and then you're making it look like it's 2D.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you're at that point, why not just do it in 3D and have all the options? But hey, I guess it's also about styles and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about now? Like we went to CAD design, work there, like a big house for architecture stuff, but we kind of had our small
a small little
rebel group. I almost felt it was like a rebel group between all the Mac users.
Yeah. And it feels like it's actually growing a bit, even though you quit and then I quit.
So I feel totally like a horrible person.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
Okay.
It's still a natural growth, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's I just quit like 3 months ago, but I have my last month now. I just put in my notice very, very early.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think my last day is the 2nd of July.
Okay, wow. And then after this, you're heading into the freelance world, doing freelance jobs.
Yeah, hopefully maybe landing some of my own clients at some point. That's really the goal. I think that would be a lot of fun and really challenging. But I think freelance is going to be the main source of my income.
Yeah, it is a very, for me, I feel like it's a very freeing way of working. Even though I personally work a lot with the company still that we both worked at, then it's like just being able to manage your time and decide which project you're going to take in. That's super
really
freeing.
That's really what I'm looking forward to as well. That flexibility that you are talking about.
Yeah. And also, I remember we were chatting about multiple times this thing where you could kind of decide, okay, I'm going to do these things, and then I'm just going to take off a month and just do some project that I would like to do, and just forget about money, and just do this thing and get back into the work afterwards. So you wouldn't have to, like, what's it called, balance work and personal projects. So it sounds like personal projects has been like a big part of both the way you pushed yourself and learned all these things, and also while you were at the office and still are doing. And you just recently published this short film, Odyssey, which I'm super curious to hear a bit more about. Actually, I just watched your walkthrough. You were doing like a breakdown of a lot of the scenes. But how did this project come to be? What sparked it?
Yeah, a lot of things sparked it, as you know.
As I know, I know a little bit of it.
I talked a lot about it at the office, and I think it was in like 10 or 15 different directions. It was a little bit scattered in the beginning, but it really came about, I think, and totally in the beginning, I thought about doing some like a mock commercial, so like a fake commercial to show, you know, that I could do a commercial or something like that. Yeah. And that would be for the PS5, the PlayStation 5. And then I started to do some R&D or just doing some like idea development. And I think I was starting to get some ideas. Okay, maybe I should do this. Like I could go in this visual direction.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, which then got me into a completely different storyline. So at the beginning, it was thought about as a commercial. Then I was like, okay, maybe this could be more of like a short film. And then I got away from the whole commercial side and was like, okay, I have been thinking about mixing real footage with 3D.
Yeah.
Actually, so that was one of the things I really wanted to implement these, this paint footage. So I would film paint mixed with soap and milk, and they would create all these abstract patterns, and then I can bring that into 3D and, you know, use bump and to make it look like super cool with a lot of depth of field and things like that.
Yeah, and I think this is something like you have been experimenting with this also before this project, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, something you were already talking about, I remember, almost when I first met you, and you have some other experiments online.
Yeah.
And just for everybody listening, I would highly encourage you to go watch this film, because then you will kind of know what we're talking about. And it's a really cool short film. And it has a lot of storytelling, which I really love, because I feel like you see a lot of content out there, which is like nice. It's just eye candy, right? It doesn't have any reason to exist other than just eye candy. And this really has some thoughts that are put into it and expressed in it. But yeah, like, so if you were to say like in 2 sentences, 3 sentences, what is this film about? Like the story.
the actual story.
Or
okay, so the story really is, I guess the question that sort of sparked it was that what if archaeologists sort of dug up a lot, like 100 years from now?
Yeah.
What if these archaeologists dug up our time, but the only thing they sort of were digging up was a PlayStation and an Xbox and all the games. So they were sort of building the story of our time based on solely on video games. So that's sort of the story behind it. And then what I did was that I sort of built up this dystopian world where there's this laboratory looking for these answers. They're actually trying to figure out what happened and why is this government, this regime covering all of this up. And what they're really just looking into is just the video games, but they don't really know that. So they're trying to create a human. That's where the film ends. They're creating this artificial human with all of the knowledge that they got from these video games or from these consoles. And, they're trying to build an artificial human. And what kind of human would this be if they were solely based on these video games?
That would be like a GTA mixed with Assassin's Creed maniac person who is, I don't know.
Probably a violent one.
Probably a violent one. Maybe a bit of racing games in there, but there is not much left of that. Yeah. And
so, it's I think even that is a bit of a scattered end result of the film. It is like all over the place still.
But I think it comes across pretty clearly, this thing that they're trying to put together, like piece together this puzzle, and it makes you think about this thing. What if we have interpreted the past wrong? What if we have been looking at something in the past and we're like, okay, so this was how the Egyptian lived, but we have like completely lost or not realized that this.
So maybe one of the king's tombs is really just them playing hide and seek, and he couldn't get out.
Exactly. Imagine. And we have like historians sitting there like, oh, so it's their tomb, and this was where they buried, and they were just playing.
They would go to the end of the world, or to like the heaven, the Egyptian heaven, with all the riches around them. But he was really just stuck in there, a room of riches.
He was just stuck there. Yeah, it was like a booby trap.
He was just hiding. Yeah,
he was hiding.
Hiding in a coffin.
Hiding in a coffin. Yeah, but the example, the thought is still there.
Exactly. That was really the main idea behind it.
And what tools did you use to make this film? Just to get that out.
Cinema 40, Redshift. Yes. Everything was rendered with Redshift
and some Octane, of course, too, just to make sure that it crashed now and then.
Yeah, I just opened it a couple of times and then closed it again.
Okay.
Well, it closed on its own because it.
That's smart. That's one of the features, right?
Pretty clever. There must be a Redshift feature. Just every time you open Octane.
Yeah, it just closes.
Redshift just closes Octane.
Redshift closed. Redshift.
And all of the post production was After Effects.
Yeah, After Effects.
And that's really it. I didn't really use that much else. Photoshop, yeah. Because I realized that you did a lot of editing on all these small pieces of the covers of the video games. Yeah, a lot of labels on some of these chemical bottles. I was sitting in Photoshop and drawing, like I think I was writing things like keep the lid on, or
keep the lid on,
or danger, or something like that. So it was
actually
yeah. But these small details that you would never notice.
But that's like the thing that it's there. That's what makes all of it great. I don't remember the guy who made the Octane thumbnail. When you install Octane, it has
Cornelius Damrich.
Exactly. I feel like he's doing the same thing, writing all these notes all over the place, and it's just So
his is out of this world. It's so detailed.
Yeah, he's out of this. Yeah, that's true. But still. It's really cool to have all these small Easter eggs in there. Yeah,
there's a couple of them, I think. Actually, in the beginning, I totally forgot to talk about that in my video. But in the beginning, I have graffiti from GTA on some of the walls from GTA San Andreas.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty well-known Call of Duty and esports clan called the 100 Thieves that I have been following for years. I have them as a graffiti.
So is that in the very first scene where you see like the entrance to the lab?
Yeah. I have some
It's cool.
some graffiti from CS:GO Counter-Strike as well.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, I feel like those small things you add in there, it gives you so much joy yourself. Maybe nobody will notice, but it's like
Yeah.
so much joy. And then I
It's
remember
just a little
once,
bit of fun.
like I wrote in the bottom of one of my videos, because it was a car video, I wrote a lot of these commercials. They add that driven by a professional driver, don't do this in real life. And I edited it for like 3 frames, and somebody in the comments noticed it and wrote it, and that just made my day.
Yeah, absolutely. That
Somebody
really means
caught my
that people
joke.
care. Yeah, people
Exactly.
actually look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I haven't got that comment yet, so.
okay, after this, people will do it, but maybe it's not really the same then. I don't know. But I will look through your video and see how much I can find now, because I'm really curious how much is in there.
There's a couple of things.
That's a couple of things. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
The NVIDIA logo is in there as well.
I think you said that in the video as well, in the walkthrough, that it was actually like, it looked like the Egyptian eye, but it was just NVIDIA.
Yeah, that was the thought I had. Like, NVIDIA logo does look a little bit like this Egyptian eye.
And it makes total sense. Like, if the scientist has broken the data on the disks, and then the NVIDIA logo just kind of glitched into there. And,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, makes total sense. So how would you say that you stayed motivated on this project? Because you said in the video it took like around a year to do. So that's a very long time for a personal project. And you were also juggling like normal business on the side or office work. How do you stay motivated, not wanting to jump to something else?
I actually had someone ask me that on Instagram after I finished it. Someone wrote to me, and I wrote back to him. Like, obviously, there's the just being motivated to actually create.
Yeah.
Like, I'm mostly always motivated to create something, but actually doing the same project for 10 months, I think it was 10.
10 months.
It's a little bit difficult. But I wrote to him that I was telling my friends, my colleagues, my family about it. Every time I would see them, I would tell them about a little bit, tell them about a scene or tell them about my full plan with the project.
Yeah.
So I would sort of pressure myself into, so every time I would see my family or my friends or my colleagues, they would ask me about it. And I had to have something new to tell them. So that was sort of
like, so you didn't
give myself this pressure from the outside, this social pressure.
That sounds very healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I remember I also always, like, at lunch, that was the first thing I asked you, just every single day.
And I had to get something new to you.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise I would be very disappointed.
I think that's a way of sort of, tricking your brain into staying motivated.
Yeah.
But also I think a big part of this project that made it a little bit more fun was that the scenes are so different.
Yeah.
So each scene was really like working on a completely different project. It was mostly in the totally end, like at the end of the project, I was starting to get bored of looking at all of the same scenes and, rendering it again and again, or doing the animation for the same things. Yeah,
that part we don't like. That's why we have render farms. But it's so interesting to see, because it's also very obvious when you watch it. There are a lot of scenes that are like these blue and red colors, but then there are some scenes, like the first scene is totally different. It's like very asset heavy. It has a lot of structures and nature and like some vines or something. And yeah. So it is very obvious. It's very different scenes, all of them. And for this project, you were telling me about that you actually had a collaboration with a company doing some sound for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really curious, how did that work out? Because I personally have a lot of problems always trying to make the sound, and I end up trying to do it myself, and I suck at that stuff. So how did that all come to be?
Well, I think they wrote me like 2 years ago on Instagram that they were following me on Instagram, and if I ever needed any sound effects or music, I should just write to them.
That's super cool.
I think they were watching my Instagram videos and saw that I was doing personal projects. And they were just thinking, okay, maybe there's a collab here we could do. And then 1 year later, I wrote to them, hey, I'm working on, or a year and a half later, hey, I'm working on this personal project. Is this, can I still take you up on that offer? And they were super great, just said yes. And we had a small Zoom meeting, and we're just discussing the whole film and how far I was and all of that. And they thought it sounded cool. I sent them some style frames, and they were fully on board, and they wanted to do it for free, which was very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was obviously listening through all of the projects on the website, and I thought they sounded super cool and super good. And I never really worked with a professional sound designer or musician before, so I also just had to jump in.
And how was that? Was it hard to figure out how to get the pipeline to work, like how to deliver the files?
A little bit, I would say. But I asked them very clearly, like, okay, so what is your process? So we could really make sure that our process was aligned.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So a little bit of time passed, and I was starting to have an animatic, just like we would do at work, and have a full previous film. And I would send that to them, and then they would create the music, and they would, have where the music would actually cut, like what's it called, the 4 beats.
Yeah.
And then they would send that to me.
I don't know music.
The music beats, whatever.
Music beats.
Yeah, beats.
The CG podcast, not a music podcast.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Whatever. We don't know that shit.
That's
yeah. And they would send that back to me. And I would then, cut it so it would actually fit the music. And after the music was sort of laid down, they could just, put on details. So they were just having like a basic theme throughout it. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. That's pretty cool. And then they would just slowly start to develop even more smaller details, add instruments and things like that.
Wow, and then, so even the music they went in and changed after you've made the first rough cut.
Yeah.
With
like they actually changed some pretty major things almost to the end. Wow. Because they were watching the film to the final, like almost the final version. And they were sort of, I guess they came up with some new ideas. Okay, well, maybe we should build up this here, and then we could sort of turn it down right then, and things like that, smaller details. But I think it really helped the story. And
It's so when you hear it with the audio, it just gives it another dimension because it all works so well together.
Yeah, that's what I wrote to them also. I think it
so cool.
It leveled the project up a bit.
It's everything goes together. The pictures and the sound just goes together. Yeah. It's really cool. Really cool.
Totally. Yeah, it's just a small note. When the whole film was final, then they would add the actual sound effects.
Okay.
So everything was final and all the music was final. And then so they could see actually how the textures was. And so not just doing sound effects just on a previous, but actually on the final frames.
Yeah. I think that's very important because we have both tried that a lot of times where we were pressured on a deadline. And it was like, just send to the sound guys, just send the previous, like this hardware render, grayish render without any lighting or colors or textures, anything. And it's like for them, they can't see if something falls on the ground. They don't know if it's supposed to be soft sounding or hard sounding. Exactly. And it makes it hard. It makes it really hard. And then we try to write notes, but it's just, But it's really cool to hear that this was the process. I actually didn't know. But I hope to be able to work with some really cool sound guys in the future.
I must say, if I had to do this on my own or just use stock music, it wouldn't have been the same.
No. But did they actually compose this, or did you find a track or something?
No, they composed the music. They completely.
That is incredible. That is really incredible. Oh, but anyway, were they called UN Studio or something? That was
UN Studio.
UN Studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based in Austria.
Cool guys. Mm-hmm. So if we should just go back to like the storytelling part, because I love that about this film, that there is a story in there. So what would you say you kind of learned from this project, both the process, but also just working on the project? Like storytelling, if people want to make a universe of some sort, not just make, like the Instagram renders where it's like, it looks flashy, that's it. Then you scroll and you like, but you want to tell something more. Are there some things you can say there, like some tips?
I would say, that's a good question. I think there's a couple of things you could do maybe. Actually coming up with a story in the beginning. So having a small, concise idea of a universe you want to create or a story that you want to tell. And then building your scenes with that in mind. So if you have a story where you want some specific idea or some specific story to be like to actually, be what is it called? Being told.
Being told, yeah.
Yeah. Then approach each scene with intention. So if you're adding an object, ask yourself, why should this object be in here?
Yeah.
You know, adding an object you shouldn't just add an object because it's pretty or because it's shiny or because, oh, I think that looks good. I think you should add the object if it actually helps to convey a certain story.
I loved
And
also, sorry, go ahead.
no, you totally just.
I saw in your walkthrough, you also talked about how in one of the first scenes, you put these yellow toxic suits on the wall because you knew that will make people realize right off the bat, okay, this is something toxic. There's something something dangerous here. And later on, you talked about how you placed the keyboard like WASD and the gamepads on the table, and you made that the first shot inside the lab because then people knew, okay, we're talking about games. And I really thought that was so cool because that exactly shows like that's what a director would focus on, right?
Yeah, I think that's very, very important to actually have these. I talked about it in that video as well, like these symbols. So it might not be like a specific symbol, a PlayStation controller, but it's a symbol we know. Yeah. It's something we connected in our brain so quickly that it's something to do with gaming.
Yeah.
And I think that just as you said, the WASD keys and an Xbox controller and a PlayStation controller, you know exactly what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And I think that these toxic suits, or what are they? Hazmat suits.
Hazmat. Okay, that's what they're called. Yeah.
Having objects like that and the gas masks as well, and having them, especially in an abstract film like this, where I didn't want any specific characters. So having objects that can act as a character.
Yeah.
You know, because that small hazmat suit or that small gas mask has a story in itself. So if you can build a universe where each object are sort of have their own small story, I think that's really the key to building the whole scene as a complete story, if that makes sense.
Well spoken. I can only agree. That is, I think you're totally right about that. And yeah, just making it all fit together like that, because I think a person like Beeple, just to mention like the top person in the game, he does that even in his Instagram post. He's so good at like you see something and it's recognizable like this. You understand what the story is.
Yeah, I think that's why he's also popular, because he's not just making the shiny sphere or something.
Yeah,
just looks pretty. It's actually like there is a small. He might not have like a super complex story, but there you can see there's something political, or there's something funny about that.
Sometimes
but
it's
there
very
still is something. Yeah. Or there's something pornographic about that.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
Yeah. So what about the future? What are your plans? Now I know that that there is a bit of freelance involved. But I've also heard a little bit about some museum stuff that you were thinking about, which sounded super interesting, which also had to do with one of the previous projects you made, Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have really been struggling with I think it sort of started with when I wanted to go out on my own. I was reading a lot of books and listening to podcasts, and everybody said you have to niche down. Yeah. And I wasn't really sure what direction should I actually go into? Should I just say, okay, I'm only going to do phone commercials, or I'm only going to do something super clean render, so I'm going to do these crazy environments, and then that's my style. Yeah. And I was reading a book, I can't remember what it's called right now. Whatever.
We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, exactly. And I was reading that book, and he came up with these exercises that you could do. I think he's working as a coach for freelancers, creative freelancers. And he made me do these, or the book made me do these exercises where I would write down my personal interests. And through that, I sort of found out that, okay, maybe I should be working with museums, because I'm really into history and I'm really into like traditional art. I love like old paintings and things like that. So I was thinking there might actually be a new avenue for me here. I might not have to, all this, I've been used to creating these commercial for so long.
Yeah.
So I think my brain was just sort of, that's the way I work. That's just what I do. instead of actually thinking maybe I can do my skills or use my skills for something completely different, but still, still use the same software, still have all the technical knowledge and put it into use in a completely different avenue.
That's what is, I think, is also so cool about our field. Like we were just chatting a bit about this before going into the podcast, that you can, like, you have 3D, but it just branches out to like an infinite amount of ways. And if you get bored this, like right here, you can just go there. Like, especially
with the new tools, like we just saw the new Unreal Engine Engine 5, right? There's so many new possibilities for that probably. Exactly. And I have to get into that if I want to do this museum stuff, I think.
So this museum stuff, what can you give an example on what you are seeing that you could make in the future?
Yeah, I have a ton of different ideas, but if I go to there's a museum pretty close to like an hour from where I live, or 40 minutes from where I live. It's a pretty big one, and they're very like futuristic. It's they're on top of technology with VR headsets and things like that. So that's one thing you could do. You could do 3D images for the VR headsets, but when they have these like special exhibitions, they would usually have maybe like a huge sculpture of, for example, they did have a Genghis Khan exhibition out there. Yeah. And they would have these huge sculptures of like suits or these, so it would just look like an actual Mongol. And they would have helmets and all of that. And that's cool in its own, actually seeing the real stuff. But and then there's screens, like maybe there's some sort of digital version, or they just have like a small animation or small video. But when I'm looking at that stuff, I'm thinking there could be more. We could do these like so much more detailed. We could have like a super cool 3D animation where we zoom into the actual scratch of this helmet and we talk about the battle that this helmet was in, or something like that. Actually bringing people into the history, not just looking at things. So actually really trying to, I think, implementing storytelling into art or history, and making, I'm not sure totally how to convey it.
No, but it makes total sense, like taking something which is static and make it active, right? Like something that was in the past, making it now.
Because I think these museums have sometimes, it can be a little bit boring. You're just sort of walking around in this huge space and you're just looking at dusty old models or dusty old paintings. But what if we instead think about, for example, I was thinking about like what could we do for the kids, for some kids visiting an art gallery? What if we did like a whole treasure hunt? So, but the treasure hunt is part of the paintings. So maybe there's a painting where there's a small little, it could be like an Easter egg. There's a small detail. Look for the dog in this painting or something like that. And then we would walk around. It could be an app or something like that. Just thinking more about art and history as a full experience, more than just being, I go and then I look at this and then I look at this. Actually bringing people into it.
Having the view of storytelling in a museum, how you can guide people through it, that's very interesting. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it, and also like seeing where you go with this and what you come up with and everything. It's super cool. Super cool.
I think I have decided that it's gonna be sort of my next year. So it's gonna be sort of, for the whole next year. I'm starting to plan it. I'm trying to get to know some people in the actual museum industry in Denmark, and trying to slowly build it up and see if there's actually something here, because it might just be in my head.
I don't think so. I think they're hungry for new things all the time. Also, it just shows that VR was adopted very relatively quickly for some museums, like the ones that really wanted to push it. And the problem I feel is always when I've gone to museums and I've seen these things, maybe it's just because I'm very critical because we are working in the field, is that the quality isn't very good. So you get kind of a bad quality experience. And that's really a shame, because it could have been so much better if the medium was used the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm thinking. If you're actually doing some quality for this art, I think there's the one thing is there actually money for it?
Yes,
Of
course.
That's also something I have to figure out.
Yeah.
But it might also be the thing where, what if we create a better experience? Then maybe you would have even more guests.
Exactly.
So maybe it follows. Yeah.
And I mean, the new thing is always the one people want to see. So the new medium is also a way to get people to go there. But now you said that will be more next year. So the rest of this year, are you going to focus more on client work, on building your base there, like as a freelancer, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm just gonna build up the portfolio a little bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe niching down in, so thinking about just freelance motion design, and also niching a little bit in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the goal. Just just starting out freelancing, actually being able to do it for a year. I think that's just gonna be the goal here first.
Yeah.
Actually, being able to live off of freelance or my own clients, if that's possible.
Or your own clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that we've been talking so many times about all these different branches of CG and how you can use it. Have you been looking into the NFT space lately, or like courses, podcasts, YouTube videos, which you obviously already do?
I did have like a 7-month pause because of the Odyssey project. I tried to balance them both. I couldn't do it. And I just had to focus on one thing at a time.
That is honesty. I just couldn't do it, so I gave up.
Yeah, pretty much. I had to shift my focus.
Yeah.
But all of those, I think. I've been I've been trying to build a course, but only like the beginning stage. So it's only my ideas and my thoughts on a paper right now.
Okay.
But I want to build some sort of motion design course at some point.
Yeah.
Where I take you through like a whole project, like a basic 30 seconds commercial or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I take you through most of the steps from a fake client brief to actually finalized project.
And talking about that, what do you think that somebody starting out in the industry who wants to break into the industry, what do you think they need to focus on? Because sometimes, personally, I think it can be hard with the flashy tutorials like Ian Hubert's 1-minute tutorials. Those might look like the place to start because it's only 1 minute. It's a small investment, but you actually don't learn the stuff you need to learn if you go there.
I agree.
What would you say? What is maybe if people know something, but if they want to break into the industry, like be professionals, what would you suggest they try to learn?
Oh, it's a difficult question because, maybe you're not just starting out. You know a little bit about the software, maybe.
Little software, yeah. Because of course you can't get the job after a week of doing Blender. That's maybe a bit optimistic.
But I would actually say learning the sort of the process of a project.
Yeah.
So not just if you know a little bit about the software, you'll go far enough, I think, to get the job. But I think the beginning obviously is the software, but there's so many tutorials for that. So, I'm not totally sure where you would go to actually find some knowledge about the actual process of creating a project. Maybe the book Design for Motion, I think it's called. They go through sort of the creation of style frames, animatics, and all of that. Mm-hmm. And I guess that does teach a little bit about pipelines stuff. So I would say trying to gather some knowledge about how you actually create a full project. For me, that's been a huge thing. And I think for companies, if you start to understand how to work with a client, there's a bigger chance that you will actually get the job. Because if you understand how you actually create a project for a client and not just the shiny things, that's also a help. Yeah.
I think that is very true. I remember the first job I got, I had no clue what clients, like who those people were. And I think it was the second week they asked me, "Oh, so do you want to be on a client call?" And I was just like, I was scared to death by that. Yeah. And I think all these soft skills that you learn in the business, I think they are also really good to get. And like you said, seeing the vision of the client. not just making the shiny stuff.
I think that's exactly right. The soft skills are really, but I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm not totally sure where you would go to get that knowledge. I think some of the knowledge can be picked up if you just listen to 3D or motion design podcasts. Maybe there's like small nuggets. I think that's where I got a lot of it from in the beginning.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the internship was obviously a big factor. Actually, just being on the sideline of someone like your colleague, and he's slowly teaching you.
So really getting out there, trying it in the industry, and seeing what the other people do. Yeah, and then maybe not earning the big cash in the beginning.
But actually understanding the pipelines in the field.
Yeah.
And what we're actually trying to do for the clients, because we've talked about that a lot.
We have.
The sort of the balance between, are we doing it for them or are we doing it for us?
Yeah.
Like, because we obviously want to create something that's beautiful and we want to create art, but sometimes is that really the best thing for the client? And sometimes it might be the best thing for the client. And balancing these things is also, there's a lot to it.
Super difficult. And I know that your work lately at the company has been so cool. It has been it has moved more into an abstract field where you could go with an idea and you could explain the idea to a client so much that they realize this is what we want. Because when the clients come in there, they don't know what they want. Well, they know what they want because they saw this other video made by this company, but that's not always the best solution.
No, exactly. And I think that's something I've really learned a ton about in the last year, probably.
Yeah.
Like actually diagnosing the client and thinking up, okay, what's the best for this client? And not just looking at their competitors and thinking, oh, they should have the same video as their competitors.
That will get them to the same level. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. We should build something that's going to make them look different. That's going to make them look exceptional or something like that.
Yeah. Agreed. But I don't want to take too much more of your time. It was just super nice that you wanted to jump in and have a little discussion with you about these things and hear more about your short film and about what you have been up to. And just at the very end, is there something you want to add, and also where can people find you if they want to see your work?
Motionmixture.com. There's a ton of resources for motion designers and people who use Cinema 4D and After Effects. And Motion Mixture on Instagram. I think that's really, you could probably, and Motion Mixture on YouTube. And I'm not really sure I have anything to add right now.
Okay, that's But then I just want to say thank you so much for doing this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with in the future and all that.
Yeah, man, you too.
Thank you.
It's gonna be an exciting future, hopefully.
Thanks again to Malthe for being on this first episode of the podcast. And if you would like to support the podcast and want to see more of this, you can go and rate us on Apple Podcast. You can follow us on Google Podcast or whichever podcast service you use. And please just like this video and maybe share it with a couple of friends. It would help me a lot. I wanted to create this podcast because I find myself as a freelancer sitting at home a long time every single day without any people to talk to. I really miss this interaction that I had at the office, and with a lot of people working from home anyway because of the pandemic, I thought it was the perfect time to start a podcast. So it's a CG Square where people can meet up and we can talk about anything that has to do with 3D in relation to the kind of work we do, new tools, effects, workflows, and other creative challenges or success we have had. If you would like to be on the podcast, please just send me an email at daniel.v.jensen@gmail.com, or if you have any suggestions on who I should ask to be on. And don't forget to check out the links below with the real-time motion graphics course from Wingfox. I think that was about it. Have a nice day, everybody, and see you in the next one.